Hey guys, this is Paco Manel back with episode 2 of Reformat. Reformat is about you and your battle stations. This is a show that talks about your setups and ways on how you can further improve it. I am now accepting submissions for episode 3 and 4, so don't forget to submit your photos to reformatsetups@gmail.com. Just reminding you guys that this show is primarily not a contest. However, since this is the second episode, I'm giving away a Steam wallet code to the most creative setup of this episode. So keep in mind that as long as you have a setup, you can join and get featured on my show. Let's get started. This first setup is submitted by Les from the Philippines. He's a software engineer by day, a gamer and musician by night.
First impressions on his setup is that he has a large space to work with, and his cable management is on point. Loving the blue LED accent that matches the curtain behind his monitor. At the core of this battle station is a fairly powerful mid-range rig. An i5 6600 paired with a GTX 1060 and 16GB of G-Skill Ripjaws RAM. The iPad used as a secondary display is a nice unique touch and would definitely recommend you do the same if you have an extra tablet laying around. For his peripherals, he uses a Logitech G502, which is a great mouse, a Dragon War mouse mat, a Gatoron black RGB mechanical keyboard. Great budget peripherals there. The Edifier M1360 speakers also are optimally placed. Ergonomically, even though he has modded his desk and removed the keyboard tray, he shouldn't have a problem as his gaming chair still lines up perfectly at a 90-degree angle to his desk. As for his overall theme, you can clearly see what his personal interests are. That 1983 Fender Stratocaster looks awesome over to the left side of his battle station. First thing I would do to further improve the setup is to conceal the Wi-Fi router, as it doesn't need to be in a visible space anyway, and it doesn't look very good taking up space on your bedside table. I would also move the Marshall guitar amplifier to the side so that it doesn't block your bookshelf, but I'm assuming that isn't where you keep it normally anyway. Overall, a very clean setup with a cohesive blue color theme, and I would consider replacing the center monitor with an ultrawide to maximize the space of the desk. Thank you for submitting your awesome setup, Les from the Philippines.
This next setup is submitted by Ardy from the Philippines. He says that he built this setup for his wife, but I guess that they share the same setup anyway.
A very cool looking setup here, rocking an i7 6700, 16GB of HyperX Fury RAM, and a GTX 1060 Strix GPU, all inside a beautiful NZXT S340 Elite case. For his peripherals, he uses a Razer Black Widow Chroma, Razer Mamba Chroma Tournament Edition, Logitech C920 webcam, and a beautiful LG 34 UM54 ultra-wide monitor. The desk looks a bit cramped with the large monitor, but it still looks cool given the tempered glass surface of the desk. Unfortunately, his speakers can't fit on either side of his monitor, so he had to put it behind his monitor, undoubtedly dampening the sound, which is not a good thing. What I would do is put the computer on the floor, move the monitor to the middle to give the space for his speakers on the left and right side. Since submitting this photo, he also added NZXT hue accent lighting behind his monitors, and it works really well, illuminating his entire desk. Ergonomically, this setup is very functional given that his DX Racer gaming chair lines up perfectly at a 90-degree angle to his desk, though it still does look a bit too small for his setup. Right off the bat, I would change the desk to a wider desk if you have enough space. Though this setup has a great rig and awesome peripherals, it still lacks a splash of personality, which can easily be fixed by adding some framed posters on the wall and perhaps changing the curtain to match the color theme of your setup. There's really not much you can do here other than placing the setup in a more spacious area of the room and getting a much needed larger desk to fit all the components properly. Overall, a cool setup that could potentially be really awesome after making some of the changes I talked about. Thank you so much for submitting your setup, Ardy from the Philippines. Looking forward to seeing what your setup will look like after further renovations.
This third setup is submitted by Jason from Canada. He's a college student that's very busy with work, however he spends his free time playing CSGO and Overwatch.
Another very straightforward, simplistic setup we got going on here. A beautiful 27-inch Asus monitor hooked up to a Razer Blade 2016 with a GTX 1060 GPU. Since he's a college student, he opted to get a laptop for gaming and working on the go, though he did say that he's planning on upgrading to a Razer Core when it releases next year. Definitely, the Razer Blade is one of the best options for his situation. For his peripherals, he's using a Razer Black Widow X Tournament Edition Chroma keyboard, a Razer Taipan mouse, on a SteelSeries QCK mousepad, with generic speakers that according to him sound very good, so I'll take his word for it. I like the dark wood desk, and this makes the setup look very classy, and combined with all his peripherals, he did a great job in making this mobile battle station work really well. Notice the cool drum set behind his desk. I wonder why we have so many musicians on this episode. Plus points for that, as I am a musician myself, and I love having instruments within reach of my setup. This room looks like a standard dorm room, and I think this is another setup that lacks a bit of personality, however. Not much room for LED accent lighting here, so getting LEDs is out of the question. Perhaps a better idea would be to add some microplants on your desk, a desk lamp for better lighting, and maybe some figurines to add a personal touch. A Razer Firefly mousepad would also be a welcome addition to this setup, since he has a lot of desk space to work with, and it would really take it to the next level to compensate for the lack of accent lighting. Getting an ultra-wide monitor would also maximize the space of the desk, so I would consider upgrading that in the near future. For his drum set area, I'd add some acoustic foam to dampen the noise, so your neighbors won't complain. It would make the room acoustics better and would also improve the look and feel of the room aesthetically. Overall, a very good simplistic setup that I wouldn't mind having myself given a situation. Looking forward to seeing how this setup improves after he makes some changes in the near future. Thank you for submitting your setup, Jason from Canada.
This next setup is submitted by Noel from the Philippines. He's a college student, gamer, and he's into photography and cinematography as well.
He tries to keep his setup clean and simple on a very tight budget. He's been a subscriber since my first day on YouTube, so shout out to you, Noel, for all your support. His rig is rocking an i5 4690K, GTX 960, and 8GB of RAM. For his peripherals, he's using a Corsair K70 RGB with Cherry MX red switches, Logitech G402 Hyperion Fury mouse, Bose AM5 speakers connected to a Sony analog amplifier, and an Asus VC239H monitor. My first impression here is that this is a great example of a simplistic setup that has a lot of personality. The posters on the wall and the figurines on the desk really adds a lot of character and makes this setup stand out a bit. His cable management is okay, but it could use some tidying up, as you could still see some cables dangling under his desk. You could also drill a hole in your desk to hide the wires of your keyboard and mouse to make it look cleaner. I love the look of his computer case, and the RGB lighting matches up with his desktop wallpaper and accent lighting behind his monitor. Very tasteful use of RGB lighting, so this is refreshing to see. What I would do to improve this setup further is to frame those posters, change your desk as it's showing signs of age, and change the cabinet on the left side to something that is the same height as your desk. The tall cabinet makes your space look smaller than it is, and it makes it look very clinical. The setup would look 10 times better without it. The printer on the side really makes it look more like an office workstation rather than a bedroom gaming battle station. Lastly, give your room a fresh coat of paint. Maybe a nice cool gray shade to give the setup a more homey, relaxing ambiance. Otherwise, a very good functional setup with an awesome gaming rig. Also looking forward to seeing future updates from you. Thank you for submitting your setup, Noel from the Philippines.
This last setup is submitted by Martin from the Philippines. He's a multimedia specialist and a drummer as well.
He uses his computers for work and playing video games. As you can see, the photo is cropped a bit, and this is the reason why you should only submit widescreen photos. I can't stress this enough. First look at this setup and you'll notice that this is a minimal, clean setup that is definitely straightforward. Cable management is on point. Ergonomically functional with his gaming chair lining up to his desk perfectly, as well as a small tabletop shelf to boost the vertical height of his monitor. He's got an entry-level rig rocking an i5 4460, GTX 750 Ti, and a 16GB set of RAM. For his peripherals, he uses an LG 21.5-inch monitor, Kaimat mechanical keyboard, Logitech 302 mouse with a Dragon War mouse bungee, and for his audio he uses the Angle 3 Bluetooth speaker. Other than that, there isn't much else to the setup. I don't have any problems with your peripherals, but I recommend you replace the Bluetooth speaker with any 2.1 solution, as well as upgrade your monitor to at least a 23 or 24-inch 1080p monitor. This is 2017, and having a 21-inch monitor just ain't gonna cut it, even for surfing the web. As for his overall theme, there is so much room for improvement. There's definitely a lack of personality in this battle station, and it almost reminds me of an office workstation, which is definitely not a good thing. This setup could definitely be improved by adding some framed posters on your wall, but it's great that you have a cohesive blue color theme. Overall, a clean, minimalist build, loving the NZXT S340 case, but this setup still needs a lot of work. You could do so much more with the space you have. Thank you for submitting your setup, Martin from the Philippines.
Now it's time to announce the winner of Reformat Episode 2. The winner is Les from the Philippines. Congratulations, Les. You got a great setup going on there and you submitted great photos. You definitely deserve the Steam wallet code. Message me on Twitter at PacoManel to claim your prize. Again, I'm now accepting submissions for episode 3 and 4, so as long as you got a setup and you want to get featured on the show, submit your setup photos to reformatsetups@gmail.com. That wraps up this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. As always, I'm your host, Paco Manel, and I'll catch you in a future video.